session, a roundtable on STEM matters and how are we going to work together as universities and industry to make things happen. This session will be moderated by Dr. Anita Antwiwa, who is the Acting Dean of Engineering of this All Nations University. Is it acting or are you being named? Acting Dean of Engineering of All Nations University. And she's going to be joined. We'll just ask the other panelists to join us. We're going to get ready to get started. And we're going to hear first from, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Rose Crochet because she's online and I know her very well. Let me pen, please. So Rose Crochet is the a senior fellow at the Center for Global Development in Washington, D.C. Prior to that, she served many years as a U.S. Air Force officer doing space domain awareness work in West Africa. So she's very familiar with all things African. And so she took a year off, one calls it a gap year, to sort of look at what could happen, what needs to happen in terms of building foundational capacity for Africa and other emerging countries in space. And she really was very thorough in her outreach. That's how I met her. She actually went around looking for people like myself who were trying to do work in emerging countries. And we became partners, if you will, in supporting the effort. And I have to say, I want to give a big thank you and shout out to Dr. Mensah for taking her book and translating into French. We're about trying to get a final edit. So Dr. Rose Crochet, who is here with us, will be sharing some fundamental information about how do we go about building foundational capacity. There we have. So there's a copy of the book, and we probably should show it on camera, but we're just looking forward to having the Francophone version available for the Francophone countries. And then Dr. Anita Antwiwa will lead our other panelists who are going to be representing the CKT University, who certainly has an ongoing relationship with All Nations, and we hope to strengthen that, as well as the Academic City University, our newfound potential partner. I'm really excited that they're here to be a part of this process. So without that, so let me just give the floor to Rose Crochet, and Rose is asking to give 5 to 7 minutes of an overview of the whole foundational capacity. We don't have your books here, but I've been told that if I can get the diplomatic bag to send them down to you guys, to give me some copies. Meanwhile, there's an online version that you'll have access to, but if you want a real paper copy, we're going to try and get those to you as well, to the embassies. So without further ado, Rose Crochet, you have the floor. Thank you. Wait, give her a hand.
Thank you so much. What a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. The floor is yours.
And I have, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Do you not hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. So just thank you so much for such a warm welcome, Dr. Mensah. I'm so delighted to have you here. And again, I am endlessly grateful for the work you've been doing to translate the Handbook for Space Capability Development. And it really, if you pull it up, it's free. It's online as a PDF or as a downloadable document they can read on any device. Yeah, I do have an extensive thank you section, and that is due to reaching out with so many who are even in the room today who've shared their experience, good, bad, or ugly, in trying to establish a space program. And I'd have to say, I came to this and I come here today from a point of view as someone who isn't necessarily from a STEM background, who's much more involved in program development, design, management, and recognizing that space is a system of systems, just like many things are, you know, be it transportation or education or any other area that is critical to, you know, society and a country's function. That's why in the handbook, I do think about space by chunking it into 3 major categories. The first, and I think is absolutely critical, is the why. You know, if people don't understand why space is relevant, how it affects their lives, how it is integrated into functions from transportation to banking to education to understanding agriculture and climate change and to help make smart decisions with funds that are for non-space things, for Earth issues, then it's very hard to make a case that you're going to get the public or the political leadership to support your endeavor. So, sorry, I've got a ghost pillow that keeps popping up behind my filter. Sorry. The second section of that handbook is focused on what. So really breaking down what are we talking about when we say space. So, geospatial information systems, understanding Earth observation data in general and how it can be applied, and beyond just like making a pretty picture. Like what is the expectation? What are the skill sets? What are the questions that need to be asked and answered in order to really make use of that? Because it's not useful at all if you just have data but you don't have a way to implement it. That is sort of normalized in the various sections of government, So then the third part is all about how. So it really focuses on program design and provides a model that has worked in other complex designs, applied to space. It's built off of about 10 years of in the field activity, working on things like maritime security or border security, or during Ebola with the pandemic. I had the privilege of spending a couple of years with Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center in Ghana, which was a fantastic experience during a tough time. And I think a lot of the how do you implement, in that case, a $20 million program, across 15 countries, applies certainly to something that's as complex as developing space, but really at any level, so you can develop space capability at the scale of a business or a university or a county or any division of governance that you want. It doesn't have to be NASA. I think that's also another kind of theme here. You really, it's so core to identify what are the non-space objectives you have, and then how can you use space to get there. And maybe space is an objective. Maybe being in space activity, having an astronaut is part of that landscape, and that is completely 100% legitimate. But it still needs to fit into kind of the scope of things that you're trying to accomplish with the program. So it was published last year, and I am so excited that anybody is using it, because it's fantastic. This is purpose. That's why it's free, and that's why the Center for Global Development, which is a nonprofit based in DC and London, supported its development. And I'm endlessly grateful to it being translated into French and any other language, because it removes one more barrier. It takes so many different people to work on this. Sometimes it is an engineer you need, and sometimes it's someone who is fluent in another language, and sometimes you need a program designer. And then within each discipline that we're talking about how to employ space, you've got your data scientists, you have your folks who are implementing data into a particular system that makes it usable by non-data scientists, and you have the users who don't even need to think about it as being a space thing. It just happens to be a capability, kind of like how we treat GPS, where we just take it for granted that it's a tool available. So I guess that's kind of like the overview of the effort. I'm here today because I think it's important to learn and hear what's happening, what people are working on. And also one of my other passions that I love to address is talking about how do we build the workforce. What is the state's role in seeding certain skills so that they're ready at the right time and place, almost at the right sequence and scale over time, so that when people are learning the right skills in school, and then there's jobs available to them when they leave, and then as they get better and more competent, and their skills expand and they want to grow as professionals, is there a place for them to go? And I think that's just as important as laying down where the hardware goes, or what the name of the agency is. It's just the people are what makes a space program run. And then the other part of that, a common mistake that I saw in my research, is maybe we have some of those components in place, but then governments forget that they need to have separate project funding that is in addition to just paying someone's salary, so that those people can do something that is outside of keeping the lights on and attending meetings, right? So I guess it's a broad approach, and I'm really excited to be here today. And I'd like to cede any time I have to my fellow panelists. I'd love to hear what they're working on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rose, for giving us such an interesting insight on what you are working on in terms of space and STEM education. Good afternoon, bonjour à tous. I would like to take this opportunity to invite the next speaker to also give us an insight on their work in terms of space and STEM related activities. So at this point, I will invite Dr. Jude Bayo, who is the Dean of School of Physical Science at CKTM, University of Technology and Applied Science, to also take the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anita, and good afternoon to you all. I'm most delighted to be present here and to participate in this program. And as she said, we from CKTM, University of Science and Technology and Applied Sciences. I just want to give a brief overview of what is happening there or what needs to be happening there. So as we know, STEM drives innovation and promotes economic growth and development and enhancing our understanding of the world. STEM, as we all know, is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So as we know, its purpose is to educate students in the field of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it's an interdisciplinary and applied. Normally, you would educate the students in an interdisciplinary and applied approach, and to give students advanced knowledge and applications in the field. The learning outcomes include the following, that is academic achievement, knowledge retention, and critical thinking. STEM has the potential for helping the development of the required abilities and understanding by focusing on developing powerful ideas about the nature of scientific activity and its application. So what are we looking out for? We're looking out for curriculum development, we're looking out for scholarship, and we're looking out for infrastructural development. We are getting to know that there's going to be a space policy here in Ghana, which one of the speakers talked about, and I think that's a laudable thing to hear today. STEM education, as I said, is interdisciplinary, and space technologies are now tightly woven into the fabric of our societies. There is no simple action which does not involve directly or indirectly some form of space application. The strong dependence on the space infrastructure requires actors in various fields to possess a minimal knowledge of space technology and their application. I would say that this is crucial because it leads to the advancements of space education worldwide. So for us at CKTM, University of Science and Technology and Applied Sciences, we don't have any program like this in place. I would say any space technology program, education program is non-existent in our curriculum. So it's good that I'm here today. It's good that I'm hearing what is happening here. And we would want to see how we want to integrate, how we can integrate or start a program in this direction. So I will definitely be meeting the stakeholders and whoever is having an attachment with space education. I know All Nations University, they've been to our place, but we didn't know the extent of what they were doing. So it's good that today we are here. We are getting to know what is really happening here. The advantage with us at CKTM is that we are the northernmost university in the country. So right from our doorstep, we are walking into Burkina Faso. So it's possible that any kind of research that is being carried out in that part of the world, in that part of the country, would really add up to the totality of research in the country. So we want to be part of the space education program and research program, and then we want to contribute to it. I know one of my lecturers is here. He has been working in that direction, but the extent to which he has introduced it to the school is not the way we want it to be done. So we would want to formalize it and have a kind of collaboration like you are having with other universities so that we can be part of the story. Thank you very much, and grateful that you have listened to me. Thank you.
Please, let's give him a round of applause. So thank you, Dr. Jude Bayo, for giving us your side of the story on how your university is helping to promote space in Ghana and Africa. At this moment, I would like to introduce our next speaker or panelist, who is in the person of Professor Benjamin J.B. Nyakun, who is the Dean of Engineering and the Dean of Engineering of Academic City University College, and the former Director General of Ghana Atomic Energy. Let's give it up to him. I know Academic City is doing a lot in terms of STEM, promoting STEM education. So we'd like to find out how the initiatives you've put in place to promote STEM in the area of space technology.
Thank you very much. And I thank everybody and the organizers. Claire was at Academic City, and I listened to her carefully. And the way he can speak, I cannot speak like that. So, so bear with me. Yeah. In fact, my experience in the space doesn't come from Academic City. It comes from Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. But I don't know whether somebody has been here already. Because yesterday I was speaking to the director of the Space Science Institute, GSSTI. He was here this morning. So he was my student. So, and he became director. Me, to me, that I have grown a lot. But excuse me to say that I'm representing my president and the provost of Academic City, who is Professor Fred. And he couldn't come because he has other assignments. So he asked me to be here. And with my little background in space at Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, I can maybe add up a little bit. From the topic, actually, what he asked me to do, I have to talk about what's happening at Academic City. Academic City, as you know, is one of the key university in Ghana that is promoting STEM. Is very well noted because they have a very good facilities for the teaching and learning of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So the other time we had a meeting and I told them that let's make it STEM, S-T-E-M-N, where the last M will be medicine. Because I went to a certain country, Belgium, they have S-T-E-M-N. Because Academic City, one of the major course that's on track is the biomedical. And biomedical is medicine. So I don't know whether science, technology, engineering, mathematics includes medicine. So medicine too is science, essentially. So we should add it to the STEM studies. But it's part of one of them. That's okay. You can take it like that. So I start by saying that Academic City is well developed in biomedical engineering, where Professor Fred himself is biomedical engineer. During the COVID, he has to develop a ventilator for the country, which he did with the students. And from the biomedical, we have the mechanical engineering, and in different areas of mechanical engineering. And you have electrical engineering, and we have electronics, and we have robotics. And then we have AI. The AI is under computer science. Computer science is a different faculty from computer engineering, from mechanical engineering. So we have the computer engineering under mechanical engineering and computer science under computer engineering. And so we do computer engineering, we do robotics, and then we have AI and artificial intelligence, which we share the computer science and the engineering faculty. We have to co-share because they overlap in robotics and those type of engineering courses. So basically, when I retired from Atomic Energy Commission as the Director General, and the president said I should come and help. So when I came, two things I have to do now, which I've just started. He asked me to develop nuclear engineering curriculum, which I'm doing. And then you tackle also the space science. But when I was at Atomic Energy, the problem that I had when I interacted with people, some people have to insult me that what I'm doing, I'm not serious. Because all these two areas, and nuclear and space, nobody understands in Ghana. If you talk to them, they will tell you, this guy, we don't even have the ability to grow our cassava well. And we are talking about, about space. What do you mean? And then they will say nuclear. Can we even manage our plastic waste? And we are talking about nuclear. How do we manage the waste? So I've been talking for more than 10 years. Still, we have problems with these two major science, technology, engineering, which is pushing the whole world to the next level. These two areas are they are the highest, maybe let me say, educational system. And if you are able to understand these two areas, then you are at the higher level of science and technology, because they need brains, proper brains that is more developed to understand certain things, perhaps to understand things that are unseen, and to be able to apply it to help mankind. But things that are not seen, we people of this world, when you don't see things, you don't believe. So how can I demonstrate an atom to somebody? It's very impossible. And when we were doing the SKA from South Africa, Kuntunsi changed the disk into telescope. It was a serious matter. We have to talk before it was done. And the major issue that we had was the funding. I remember when the SKA South African people came, they came with money. Ghana should support, but there was nothing. So that is one of the things hindering our progress in these areas. And to end, maybe, Madam, is that another thing that I observed when I was there is the partnership problem. If you want to, you go to some people, you speak to them, they think that you are coming for their money, you have gotten money somewhere, and you want to come into it and then staffing the money, and you find it very difficult to form partnerships. And I would like to state that if you are able to form partner, university to university, university to industry, industry to industry, and those type of things, then we'll be able to progress. Otherwise, going solo, and what we are doing now, it will be very difficult for us to make any improvement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for giving us your side of what you are doing in promoting STEM education in Ghana. Now, when you look at the area of STEM, we can realize that only few people get involved in STEM education. Mostly the capacity building that we have it is geared towards those in the cities. But remember that in Africa, most people or most youths are in the rural areas instead of the cities. So it means that we still have a lot of deficit when it comes to STEM capacity building. So my question to all the panelists is, what inclusive strategies can be developed to increase the number of youth or students in the field of STEM, especially when it comes to space science and technology? I think I'll start from Dr. Rose.
I would say first making it relevant, to people, so it doesn't seem so impossible and far away. There's so many space applications that are relevant to people living in more rural locations. And so, for example, communications, so satellite-enabled telecommunications can extend the city's telecommunications network to, extremely remote locations with like really amazing throughput on internet access. So constellation everybody knows about is Starlink. That's maybe the first of many that are proposed or in development. So, I mean, you're talking about just, making the connection to just better access. If you're talking about agriculture as being the driving kind of economic activity, that is Earth observation data has enormous applications for understanding weather, for being able to prepare in advance of weather. So a dry season or particular wet season doesn't necessarily need to be a surprise. Indication of disease could be caught earlier. It can help a lot of practical things like connect to insurance to automate. Kenya's done some really interesting things about this, where you use satellite data to both understand the risk, and then when the disaster strikes, to evaluate what has happened to make sure that people are provided with funds to help them get back on their feet. And a lot of this comes into how does government and civil society and academia, like, what do you focus on, and I'd say the data that is used that can help can be relayed, via a newspaper or radio. It doesn't have to be so high tech, in its actual application. And then the engagement with folks is helping them understand where that data comes from, that it comes from real people who are using this data to support decisions that come all the way down to a very local level, even to an individual family or farm. And that can be the hook, that can inspire people to want to do it better, to want to be able to understand where that comes from and how could they leverage it for themselves and for their family and for their community. I think that's a really important thread to pull. And I think there's a lot of success if schools use that strategy as well, to connect the theoretical stuff to things that are actually impacting people's lives locally.
Okay, thank you very much. So she spoke about space applications, and when she mentioned space application, I remember the project which ANUSSTL came up with, that is the African Space Station Project, which is an online platform which we developed. That's was done just 8 months ago. And we have been able to engage more than 1,000 students online, not only from Ghana, but from other countries. So now we are even planning on translating it into different languages so that other people will benefit. Those who cannot really appreciate English will also benefit from the program. So thank you very much for your contribution. So I'll now move on to Dr. Bio.
Okay, thank you very much. Talking about rural areas, I don't know whether you are focusing on remote areas or about people who don't have access to tertiary education. But in both cases, I would say here in Ghana, there are so many universities opening up, tertiary institutions opening up across the country, polytechnics being converted into universities who are now doing similar things that universities are doing. So universities also have a catchment area, and we also do have to, impact the societies or the communities that we work. So in a sense, I think that
and the gap is too huge. So little time we met some big people who are decision makers, and I told them that if we here want our even universities, yeah, teaching theory, do you think we use chairs to do practicals? There should be they do business, they do law, they do this, and you tell these people who have done science and technology, go to, you can't even find job. There's no job at all for them, and we are training them. And so even at Atomic Energy, the students that we taught, and then we teach them nuclear engineering, they have all left. Because the whole chain, if they stay, and give them the knowledge that's required, I bet you, if they stay here, they will be poor like their fathers were scientists, and they will leave.
Okay, I have a follow-up question based on what you just said. All right, so is it that academia, we have failed in helping to equip students with a career which they will end up being independent or having the entrepreneurial mindset? Have we failed? And if we have, what can we do so that our engineers or those in the STEM fields, they will not complete and become a burden? Because if you have a skill, you don't have to be a burden. You should be able to survive on your own. So what can we do?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, there's people that I said we train here. When they go outside, they don't sit outside. You go and they are working, and they have good jobs to do, especially the engineers and the scientists. The problem here is that, number one, there is serious disconnect and collaboration between the academia and the industry. We have to train the people to fit into a particular field. So if, for example, you are developing something, you go to Nestle, you go here, you go this, and then you find out what are their motives, their business plan, what they are doing. Then we design the curriculum and the principles, what they need. So if the need is there, then the supply will go. But if they don't need it, then they train you, there's nothing you can do here. So that is the main, one of the issues that is confronting us. There's a serious disconnect between academia and industry, where we don't get the right focus. For example, when we were doing this satellite at Kuntusi, the 32-meter distance, we have to send people to South Africa for them to be certified as welders before they can come and then what? Work and then do this rotation of the disc. But you cannot get any person in Ghana who is certified welder to do that. They will not allow you. So what are we doing? We are just saying that if you go to the oil field and those things, most of them there are all imported welders. So where can't we do something about this? But they have started. But anyway, but in Ghana, everything that we start is too slow. Last, I was at Takoradi Technical University, Whole Technical University. This is a lot of collaboration that I want to do. So the gap is there. So we have to fill it. Otherwise, our people will just graduate and be on the street if they don't have the course.
I think let me add something to that. Yes, it's really true. I think the universities are mostly academic institutions. So when you go to a university, we train you in purely theoretical issues. So when you come out, you have the theory, but you don't have the ability to work as in an industry. So you need the industry, as you said, to take you on and train you so that now you have the theory and you have the knowledge to construct or to do whatever thing you want to do. So when there's a disconnect, like you said, then at the end of the day, you are trained. And so academics have not failed. We have been able to train you, but you cannot finalize any job because you don't have the training there. That's where the problem is. If you don't have industry to take you on for further training, then your knowledge is with you. You have the wings, like someone said, but you cannot fly. Thank you.
So I'm going to jump in here because I want us to get the next 15 minutes before we close out to the solution. So we heard all of the problems. But the reason why I wanted this session to focus on deans, because I believe that deans do have authority to make changes. I know sometimes the Board of Trustees can be problematic. So it's up to the deans to figure out how to get around the challenges of the infrastructure of academic system. Because if we look, this is something I've been complaining about even when I go to Jamaica and I visit the engineering schools, and I'm saying, if we're an engineering school and this university, why did so many things are not working? That's the first thing. So right here in your school, you have a laboratory for problem solving. Entrepreneurs are basically problem solvers. So if academic institutions in Ghana, and if it's engineering is gonna drive Ghana 2057, and with space for the SDGs are a critical part of Ghana 2057 and AU 2063 being a part of Africa's development and Ghana's development, it seems to me that the engineering schools really have to decide to take on leadership. You can't wait to be baptized to be leader. That's not what a leader. If a leader waits to be asked to lead, then really you're a manager. A manager is not a leader. And I say this as somebody who has led change without any titular authority whatsoever in the institution I work. So I know it can be done. So the question is, can engineering schools, first of all, recognizing that, yes, the economic challenges that pervade in every developing country, we don't have funding for X, Y, and Z. This is a reality. If you have a question or comment, I'll give it floor to you. What is it that engineering schools have to do differently? So what do you think about that question? What is the one thing? My theory of change is everybody can do one thing. We want to leave this conversation these next 2 days with 1, 2, or 3 things that each of you as 3 engineering schools can do to make a change. Is it going to be creating a course, a seminar, a course that you all agree to? Here's what the standard of this course will be. Every graduating engineer must have gone through this seminar where they take a problem and they solve it. What is it that can be done? And how will that problem be designed? So they have to use a space-based solution to help bring in the space agenda. So while they think about that, this gentleman has a question. Mr. Ashong has a comment. Okay, so Dr. Rose, the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Right, yes, thank you. So this is an excellent question, and it kind of comes back to, you've got sort of four corners in a space ecosystem. You have academia, civil society, you've got the private sector, you've got the government, and each one has their strengths. And what you're getting to is like, how do you bring these communities together? And some tools that other countries have used and other universities have used is establishing an incubator type environment, or an accelerator environment, where they're bringing together, commercial engineering and sort of problem solving mindset to move from theory to something that can actually be implemented. And sometimes instead of commercial, you swap that out with maybe a government entity if they're doing a particular research project. But it gives them a safe environment, where they're not worried about where they're gonna work, or that they have lab space, and mentors, and some structure and guidance over a very time-bound period, so they have to stay focused. And there's a lot of success that comes out of that, and governments can support by offering like a prize for them to drive after, so some kind, either recognition, funding, the promise of a contract. I mean, these are the kind of things that will focus talent into one sector that pulls from different specializations. And I agree. I think it's a real challenge where you, in a university setting, you have to go in depth in the theory to really understand it. But then there is a phase where you're trying to bring together different disciplines to achieve an effect. And I'm excited to hear that there's this problem solving center. I think that's really interesting. That's the kind of thing that could evolve. If you say, okay, we applying space in a reasonable way, in a way that is competitive with other alternatives, is a really valid objective, because it has so many positive spin-offs. So that was just, that's just one idea to put on the table in this conversation.
Thank you so much. Doc, you said in the universities, we train academics. You train us in the STEM subjects. But at the end of the day, all of these are application subjects. And what I find, me having done chemistry, but I also did pure and applied chemistry, so it made it a lot. The thinking that I came out of university with was a different kind of thinking. If I can't find a job, I create one for myself. And that's what the applied training does to us. It teaches us to think. It teaches us to problem solve. It teaches us creative thinking, and it also teaches us critical thinking. And I find that the mindset that many of our nation's people are in is not a let's make it happen mindset, but we're waiting. So you apply for a job, you don't get a job, go create a job for yourself. And in creating the job for yourself, you're able to create jobs for others. And in the schools, that's what we need to be sharing with our students, that the opportunities are endless, but we can only make use of those opportunities if we have the right thinking skills to be able to. And that's our job as educators.
Thank you very much. I would like to add to the discussion, and this is not a question. And from my personal experience, I'm not a secondary school graduate. I'm a technical school graduate, and I read electronics and telecommunication engineering at a technical school. I think a lot of the things we miss is training STEM at the very early stages. And that is what the people are going to take That's a mindset that the next generation is going to have, and not only at the university. During our time at the technical school, I remember we were building sound amplifiers, we were building power supplies, and some of the projects that I was doing at year 2 at the technical school, I was doing projects for university graduates, their final year. My cousins, their final year project at the university, I was doing that for them at year 2 at the technical school. And this is what we need, and this is what we miss. So I think one of the things we need to amplify is how we're going to enhance our technical and vocational institutions with the right tools, because now when your child is going to technical school, you see that that child has maybe not a brilliant child, but you see the one going to the secondary school as the most brilliant. I think we need to have a refinery of that idea and able to implement STEM education at the very early stages, and that they're going to grow up to the university stages and not at the university. Hence, we're going to be at where we are. But if we want to go forward and to be part of the future forum, like they said, we need to catch them when they are young, and they'll be ours forever.
I think we can pick one from online. Patrick's hand has been up for a very long time. So after Patrick, then you contribute. So Patrick, if you're online, you can contribute.
Hello, thank you very much. Yeah, so I want to talk about STEM. Apart from the fact that STEM is science, technology, engineering, and then mathematics, I think we've come to a stage whereby we've known that apart from the acronym, STEM is about creativity and innovation. So when you are talking about STEM in our schools, it's not limited to only what we teach in the classroom, okay, or we teach from books, but it's about how we are able to let a student be their own creators, okay, and then be very innovative. For example, I did space physics in my PhD. After getting to Ghana here, like Professor JBJ said, when you talk about space physics, it's like a hell for them, because they don't even understand the reason why you did that course. So what I do is that I have to start, okay? So when you come to my university, University of Cape Coast, we started organizing seminars and then capacity building like you are doing at the moment, to educate people about what space science and then astronomy is all about. At a point in time, some people outside there also saw us on LinkedIn and then other social media, and then they got in touch. As I'm talking to you about, we visited Ghana Astronomy Radio Observatory last month, and we are getting optical, telescope from UK. I've designed, a program on astronomy. It's a liberal course where even those doing law and then other humanities will be studying. We also established an NGO called Molex Foundation, where we are taking students in basic school and then high school through STEM, okay? We are doing all these. So I think when we are talking about STEM, it's not limited to the job even you are doing at the university, like as a lecturer. You can go out there, we go to radio stations, we are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, we are in everywhere, teaching people about STEM, teaching people about space, teaching people about astronomy, and teaching people about the climate change at large. So I want to tell everyone that, like, especially what my brother who went to technical school said, I'm also from technical background. We all have to go, it's our responsibility. We all have to go out there to let everybody know that now, the STEM is not limited to certificate. It's not limited to the knowledge you are acquiring in the lecture halls or in the boundary of four corners of your lecture halls, but it's up to you to use that knowledge to create, okay, through your innovations, and then come out with what can make you who you are or what can help our society. That is what I want to say about the STEM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fosu. You can take the floor.
Okay. I'm a scientist, but I don't really want to talk too much science. So I'm not too much kind with the use of STEM, but I prefer using the term do it yourself. Yes, because as soon as you mention science, people will shrug away. But if you encourage people to do things themselves, you're able to move. Now, those of us in the global equality environment, we realize that we have a lot of issue with data gap when it comes to equality. And the low cost, as they say, equipment are even expensive. So what did we then do? Then we said, let's all try to build a low cost sensor ourselves. So as I'm here, I know how to put some things together, use Arduino, and I'll build my sensor. It will automatically record the data for me. So if we train people in that way, we come out to solve our own problems than using STEM, engineering, differentiation will send somebody away. But let's try to go low, bring down the technologies and everything to the level that even the kindergarten student can appreciate it. Then they can pick up. But if you bring in the huge technologies in science, we can't get anywhere. So that's my take.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mensah.
Hello. Hello, Rose. My question goes to Rose. I had a privilege to translate Rose's book into French. And I have to say I haven't finished yet. I still have to go another round of review. But what I want to say is about what you say about building space capability is like building infrastructure. So I would like you to elaborate on that. That's the first question. And the second question is, we know that your book is all about space capability building. So what is the difference between space capability building and space capacity building? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, a thousand thank yous. Merci beaucoup for help in translating the book into French. And I feel so passionate that, you shouldn't have to be a fluent English speaker to be a part of this community. I think we need to expand the boundaries and be a lot more proactive in having our material, all of our materials available in multiple languages. So thank you for that. First we take the easy one, and that is capability versus capacity. So capability is the ability to do something. So I think the example I use is a small geospatial team might be able to understand risk for flooding in maybe a town. They have the skill to do it. They don't have the capacity to do that same analysis for an entire region, because they just don't have enough people, enough storage, enough throughputs to be able to do that much. So if you're building a capability, that is how to do something, and then a capacity is how much of a thing you're able to do. And they're both important, but they're little different problem sets. And transitioning to a sustainable capability that is large enough, if it's too small, it's usually pretty fragile. You have that one key person who leaves because they retire, they get a great job elsewhere, whatever it is, it can make that program kind of weak, so you want it to be big enough so it's stable and is able to be able to actually serve its customers, so maybe those city planners, those managers in X space. So I think it's really important in designing a program to understand what you're trying to support, because then you can get it right sized and get that right mix of people in. So that kind of links me a little bit to the space as infrastructure aspect of this. So what are satellites? Satellites are a piece of hardware in orbit that are gathering information or moving information. So that's what it does. That's what they are. So making it less sexy is fine. It's just like another component of our telecommunications, our digital infrastructure. And whether or not a country owns a satellite or not doesn't make you any less able to like use it. So it's just like a different path. Are you buying a service and capability? Are you investing in your internal ability to build and deploy that thing? Are you doing a combination of things? But it's still a really important part of the nation's infrastructure to be able to gather and relay information, just like there are telephone poles and cell phone networks and computers and internet. It's just another aspect of that. So it also kind of relates to sort of the data infrastructure. So, like a core responsibility, I would argue, of a government in developing space capability is to have a really solid national spatial reference system. So that is, do we all understand where a particular point on the Earth is? Because if that's solid, it's much cheaper and easier to overlay different types of data on it without having to build the entire structure from the base up. So that's kind of a foundation type function, I would argue, is a responsibility of a government to do. And then maybe in the realm of academia, the responsibility there is making sure that students understand where and how to use that reference system, have understanding of the normal software that you would employ, how to find free data, and then how to find and evaluate the worth of buying commercial data to layer on that baseline system to achieve different objectives, be it drought risk or climate change, or evaluate the spread of a particular agricultural disease or pest, or keep track of those artisanal miners that might be polluting areas of Ghana's valuable agricultural land, affecting people's lives, understanding patterns, that will point to root causes of issues so that we're able to direct limited resources in the most efficient way. So it is infrastructure in many ways, depending on how you look at it. The physical infrastructure, the data infrastructure, this is all kind of intertwined. Love that question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll take the last contribution or question from Mr. Matterson.
Okay, so we're talking about how to create or how to make an engineering student that is capable of using their hands to create things. You see, and it doesn't only reside with the deans of a particular school. I think that it has to go all the way to GTech in Ghana. They are in regulation of the universities. And to be able to have that kind of engineering student, the whole curriculum has to change, because it seems we are following a certain number of trends, or a particular engineering student has to do a number of courses within a particular semester, a particular theory number of courses. So you do realize that when school reopen, the students are burdened with these courses that they need to do. And there's very limited time for that student to actually do application-based engineering, as you say, because some of these courses, they have labs attached to them. But then I call those labs as verification labs. There's a difference between a verification lab and an application lab. Because if I teach a course, and let's say an electronic devices, and there's another course like electronic devices lab. Electronic devices lab, I'm going to verify certain things I taught in the theory. And that, let's say, example, I teach a student that, let's say a diode allow current to flow in one direction. When I go to the lab, I'm going to verify this to the student that, oh, okay, a diode will allow current to flow in one direction. But that doesn't teach the student the application of a diode. So that is different. So if you don't have time, and there is nowhere in the curriculum that the student is going to be using diode to create something like a rectifier. You see, and that is the application of the diode. And you realize that when you take students through a particular semester, you are going to waste all this time teaching the student theory and verification. And if you don't, as a university, create a particular platform, you realize that the students don't have any time, because even these courses, a student is doing about 8 courses in a semester.
And before a student graduates, according to GTech, an engineering student has to get at least 130 credit hours to be qualified to graduate. So the students are doing all this in semester by semester. And as a university, if you don't create a particular platform in all nations, we have students who join the SSTL lab, which is a particular special lab that students are assigned to, and they are actually building or doing application and building things. But if a student don't join, which means that the student is going to, the extra time or the few time that he has to use to maybe do her own or his own things, he has to use that time to do or join that and do application to actually learn how to build things. You see, but if you follow the normal trend, you realize that you don't have much time to train the student how to practically build this thing, practically do the engineering. So what I think is that to be able to do this, you have to go all the way to GTech level. You have to change the whole curriculum so that students actually have time within these 4 years, okay, to do practical engineering. Because if you are going to follow or you open school, students are supposed to do 10 or 9 courses in a semester. There's limited time for students to actually be trained in practical or application-based engineering. And that is the problem.
Okay, so thank you very much for your concerns. I think as educators, we have the responsibility to reorient the thinking of our students. If we spend the time to reorient how they think, they are going to spend time to be practically, motivated. Sometimes they just need somebody to speak to them. Most of the time when I go to class, I tell my students that don't take the students you are meeting here as your competition. No, they are not. At the end of the day, you are going to compete with those from Harvard, those from Oxford. And how are you going to compete? It is the skills which you acquire. As a student, I always advise them, it is even advisable to have a mini laboratory in your home so that hours that you will spend on social media, you will spend at least 1 hour every day to do something. And at the end of the year, you will see that you will come out well equipped in all your practical aspects. We also have the responsibility to put the entrepreneurial mindset in them. You can find out that most of your students are selling, but what are they selling? They are selling cosmetics, they are selling food, they will come to your office, I have this, do you want to buy? So it means we have to reorient their thinking. Now, what should they sell? They should be able to develop something and sell them. I always say that engineers, we are good when it comes to developing, but when it comes to marketing, we are very bad. So I think we also have to look at our curriculum and put some of these courses to train students on how to market products, how to sell products, how to even get customers, how to convince people, how to pitch your idea to people. And if you are able to train them in this way, at the end of the day, they are going to be independent. They are not going to join the, the unemployed graduate association in Ghana. No, they will not join it, but they will be employed. So I think we have responsibility as educators to make sure the students which have been entrusted in to us, they leave us refined. Thank you.
Thank you. We have come to the end of a very rich session, and I have a couple comments about where we go from here. So we started out this morning talking about the big picture, Africa in space. Then we went to the session on the department heads. We had Dr. Pierre, we had Dr. Mamadou, we had Dr. Tando talking about what is the policy space. And we heard that governments are recognizing that they have to make space for private sector because an African government is not going to have a lot of money to put into anything. So we have companies here that are doing oil exploration and mining, and they're using remote sensing, or they're using remote sensing for earth observation or for pollution observation or for all the other things they're using it for. We have the telecoms company. And yes, it's true that many African companies don't have a habit of US companies, let's say, of corporate social responsibility. But the good thing is that the world has changed. The good thing is that you can utilize some of the systems, especially if it's a US company or a European company, to kind of inculcate a corporate social responsibility habit in the African context. So these companies will begin to support, whether it's what do you call it, training that you provide certain number of internships or apprenticeships every year. You can also have them support an incubator process. But I want us to not leave here thinking, okay, we had a great conversation, then what? So here are some concrete things I'm going to put on the table for you to think about today. So by tomorrow, by Wednesday, we'll know what is going to be the outcome of this effort. We have 4 universities that have been on this call. We have UTAS, we have Academic City, we have Cape Coast, and All Nations, right? That's 4 out of maybe the 12 US Ghanaian universities. You don't have to wait for all. The 4 of you can decide to form a consortium to look at engineering incubator systems within the engineering discipline. Then you don't have to start from scratch. We can then say to our colleague here from the US Embassy, can you hook us into maybe 2 or 3 universities in the US who already have that platform that might be willing to support a consortium? Why should a university in the US come to do the heavy lifting like what I am doing? No, they want to see you already organized, and you come as a group and you say, here is what we want, here's how we've organized ourselves, and here's some missing pieces. So for example, I serve as an advisor to a group called Engineering for One Planet. We are doing sustainability literacy for all engineers. So the big dream is that every engineer graduating out of university in the US by the year 2030 must do a module on sustainability. I want that to happen for globally, but guess what? It's a small foundation that's funding that in the US context. However, if Ghana says, okay, we have a cluster of schools, now we can go to World Federation of Engineering or organizations, because guess why? The chairperson for women in engineering is the Ghanaian. So she has clout. So she can say, hey, we want to have this happen as part of the outcome of Africa. We're going to get every company that's doing business in Africa to put some money in for this training. Now we have a prototype and we have a cluster to begin with a small experiment to do sustainable literacy in one piece. We can do an incubation experiment. So you don't have to, each of you in serial, then you teach the course, then next year you teach the course. No, all 4 universities can start at the same time, and you experiment and go in an iterative fashion as you go along and bring others with you. So by 2030, you can easily scale up exponentially to move from 4 to 40 to 400. Why? Because you already have an African Association of Engineering Education already existing. It's just that, again, that association is very weak. One thing I have to say, I've lived in America for 40 years. And one thing we're good at in America is organizing civil society. Government in the US does not organize us. So it's Engineers Association, it's Nurses Association, it's Firefighters Association, it's Nurses Association, it's Eyeglass Makers Association. Every single industry in America have an association. Bread Makers Association, flour import, you name it, they have it. Why? Because that's how the system works. So if you're living in a democracy like Ghana, you have got to organize to enable the government to provide you what you need to help the government make its goals. The government has its goals, it has its 2050 vision, but I think it's the engineering schools that are going to drive Ghana 2057 to fruition. And so part of your responsibility is to also get the Ghana Institute of Engineers to be part of this process to help us all move forward. So that is how I see it. You have 2 more days to think about it, but let's leave here with some concrete potential projects to put on the table as the 4 universities have been a part of this process. So thank you, Rose, for taking time out of your day to join us. We know that you are committed to Africa. She could have left Africa after she left the Air Force and said, I'm done, I'm walking away, and go and take her Air Force self to a big time job in corporate America. She chose to take a year off to write a book. She's a lot of time it took for her to write that book. Please, we're going to make sure you have access to it, and you're going to use it to help guide you going forward. But we know it's good to have friends and places that can always give back something. So I want to thank you, Rose, very much for being our friends, a friend of those in the developing world.